Hi, I'm Shelley, resident of Victoria, Australia, and someone who loves to travel. We're pretty excited at the cap placed on the cost of public transport in Victoria recently. It's to make things fairer for people who live in country Victoria, particularly those who commute to the larger cities, but it's making being a tourist in our own state so unbelievably inexpensive. We've decided to make the absolute most of it, and this was our first attempt. It was not an unqualified success, but we had a great time thanks to our lovely family and we learnt a lot, so I thought it was worth sharing with you. We started by booking the tickets on the V-Line website. Because it was a Saturday and a Monday public holiday, the tickets were capped at $6.70 for an adult and half that for a child each day. That meant that it cost us under $17 each day for the three of us, so $34 for the weekend. And this is cheaper significantly than the petrol would have cost us for this trip. It's probably worth mentioning that for this journey, you need paper tickets. I usually pick them up from Flinders Street Station the night before, although in theory you could pick them up from Southern Cross in the morning. Now, the first thing that we would have changed is that we wouldn't do it over the King's birthday weekend in winter. I'll explain more later, but basically it was too wet. I think what makes the most sense is to show you what we planned and then tell you about what we did and then tell you how we would do it and in fact we'll do it next time. Basically, because we were getting in just before 10 a.m., so a bit later in the day, we decided to do the shortest stretch on that first day, heading down to Milawa. Also, Brown Brothers Winery had live music in Milawa that afternoon, so we were really hoping to get there in time for a nice lunch outside the winery listening to music. Our lovely family members were booked to meet us there, and then we planned for them to drive us back to their place in the Myrtleford region for that first night. Then on the Sunday, we intended to walk along the trail to Everton railway station and then down to Pioneer Bridges campground to camp the night. This would have allowed us to start very early in the morning on the Monday public holiday so we could walk back to the rail trail and then on into Wangaratta to catch the train home. We left Melbourne before sunrise on Saturday. This is from us crossing the Yarra River, as we walked from South Bank, where we'd been staying, into Southern Cross railway station. Bit of a hike, but that's okay. We were booked on the 7:07 a.m. train from Southern Cross station. The train was almost fully booked when I booked a couple of weeks before, so we had to book tickets separate to each other. However, on the morning, they had a heap of no-shows. At the end of the weekend, I realised that's probably because there was no snow at the ski resorts, so people who had booked for the first weekend of ski season probably cancelled because they wouldn't get to ski. We arrived at Wangaratta station just before 10, as we had planned. Here's a map in front of the station that has the rail trail marked on it. And they also had some other walks, which I'll pop up at the end. And we're off. We just asked a local for advice, and he suggested that we didn't take the scenic route of the bike riders because it can add a couple of kilometres, and we were trying to keep it short. So we did end up diverging from the rail trail in that earlier section to walk along the road down toward Whitfield. So yeah, basically just walking through your Wangaratta streets. It wasn't too long before the rail trail had rejoined the road and that we were walking down. And as you can see, the rail trail has all these signs along it. Maybe not quite as frequently as I would have liked, but still, gives you an idea that you're on the right path. There are a few little, well, it was mostly along city streets. There were a few little cool things to look at along the way. I love that tree. And then it got to look a little bit more rural. The river was really high. And this is why our choice of time to travel probably wasn't the best. That is actually the trail that is underwater where it went under the Hume. So we had to scramble across those rocks to get under the highway. This was our first indication that our plan of camping beside the Ovens River on Sunday night might not be realistic. Other parts of the trail were also underwater. It was around here that we were overtaken by some cyclists. We couldn't understand how they got through from Wangaratta, but apparently they had been warned to divert to follow the road, avoiding the worst of the water. So this is somewhere to consider staying if you want to walk and not camp. As we were getting in towards Oxley, which is where this was, we decided that we wanted to preference getting to listen to some of the music at the winery, which was finishing at 3 p.m. So our lovely family collected us from Oxley and then drove us into Milawa to Brown Brothers Winery. What a lovely way to spend the afternoon. After the music finished, we also dropped into the cheese factory because it's Milawa, you have to go there, and the mustard shop for some tastings at both before heading into the Myrtleford area to stay overnight. We were a little late starting on Sunday morning, but my goodness, what a beautiful view. There are signs along the way to tell you how far you are from the major stations. So that's from Everton, that's what the E's for. So I don't know if you can see those bits of metal sticking out of the verge. That was the only evidence of Gapsted station, which was the first station that we were actually seeing along the trail. We would have missed it if not for Mario, who worked as a tobacco farmer back in the day. He told us about unloading the fertiliser from the train for their crops. Unfortunately, Brendan had a bit of a mishap early in the day, but fortunately, our guardian angels are still with us and went back to bring duct tape for us. Duct tape is now on our essential packing list. Here we are at Taylor's Gap, which is where you cross the road, which has a long history, including an accommodation house, a hotel, a toll gate, and Ned Kelly's escape route from Stringy Bark Creek. This section of the trail is actually a lot further from the road than we were expecting it to be based on the map. So that was quite nice. You're kind of out in the midst of it. And again, a few kind of random sites of interest as you're walking along. So this is Bowman Station, which is the first of the signposted stations. There is a sign on the fence for the Waruli Cafe along the trail, but the cafe itself is a long way from the trail. Thought it was probably worth popping in one of the code of conduct signs for your information before you travel. Bowman Station is mostly a car graveyard, as far as we could tell. It seemed like there was a lot of more water everywhere than there normally would be. Here's the road crossing at Great Alpine Road, just before Brookfield Station. Now might be an appropriate time to mention that we didn't actually see a toilet block all day until we got to Everton Station. Brookfield Station is also basically just the sign, but we did park our butts somewhere and had some lunch there. By this stage, the state of the trail, because of the water on it and a few other things, had us pretty much deciding that we weren't going to be able to camp overnight, which we had known was a strong possibility when we started that morning. We had been thinking we might be able to press on to, based on that we weren't going to be camping over, that we'd press on as far as Tarrawingi or maybe even to the station after that, and then get a lift back to the same spot in the morning to still complete the trail. But Brennan was clearly in a bit of pain from his feet. So here at Brookfield, we discussed whether now was the time to actually call in the cavalry. Agreed that we weren't going to try and walk the next day. So we would just ask for a lift back into Wangaratta on Monday. Brennan changed into thicker stocks and he thought he could get it at least as far as Everton. So we agreed if we could get to Tarrawingi, we'd make our dinner there because we had our dinner ready because we thought we'd be camping out. And then we'd ask for a lift back. But Natalie rang here at Brookfield while we were here at Brookfield and told us that we could always cook our dinner in their driveway if it really mattered that much to us. However, on to Everton we headed. This stretch is very much through farmland, so even though it's a fair way from the road, there's farmland either side. I think this is Horseshoe Creek. And this is where we had been thinking we might have peeled off to stay at Pioneer Bridges. Everton was a major junction on the rail line where passengers could stay on board and head up the hill to Beechworth, or else change trains to travel east to Myrtleford and then on to Bright. So the Beechworth section of the rail trail meets around here. When you do cross the road, the station's actually still a little way in from the road, which we did eventually get to. And Brendan spotted that the station is shaped like a train, which is kind of cool. And apparently this is true of a number of the stops along the way. So as you can see, this is a properly constructed well, there's a bit of the station still there, and then they've got a nicely constructed, um, sorry, the station platform is still there and a nicely constructed train rest area. And you can see here that this is where they opened the stage 1 of the Murray Mountains Rail Trail. So we did decide that going into Tarrawingi wasn't an option, but there was definitely time to get at least there if we'd all been up to it. However, this is where we did decide to pull a pin and call in our support team. So we weren't able to do this completely by public transport. We did have backup from a car, but we have now worked out how we could have done a segment of the trail circular route without kind drivers to help us out. So again, this is what we'd planned to do on day 1 into Milawa, and then day 2 from Myrtleford into Pioneer Bridges, Everton, and then Pioneer Bridges, and then on to Wangaratta, the day 3. What we actually did was a subset of what we had planned. So just into Oxley on that first day, and then from the Myrtleford area into Everton station on the second day. But we had fun. What I recommend and what we will do in the future is to arrive at Wangaratta at 10, same on the first day, and this time do the walk via Bowser, etc. to Everton, and then go down to the Pioneer Bridges campground. So yes, because you're not starting till 10, we will get there quite late, but you just need to set up camp and then get some dinner. Oh, and this would also not be quite in the middle of winter, so it wouldn't be as dark anyway. But then the following day, you can walk in and around Milawa because there's so much to see and experience and taste. So in and around Milawa, and still camp back at Pioneer Bridges that night. So that's 2 nights at Pioneer Bridges, and then on the third and final day, an early start should have us being able to take a fairly relaxed walk back to Wangaratta Station via Milawa and Oxley, etc. So here's just a few information sources. Obviously, V-Line I already knew about, but the others are ones that I came across while we were on the trail. So I thought they're worth popping in here so you can look them up beforehand. And yeah, that's basically what we did. Thank you.